Thanks for the meeting. And one more time, I'm going to ask everybody to give Paul and the group a round of applause, please, if you would, for a fantastic meeting. And so we will try to fly through this. This is just going to be sit back. As you can see, this is one of Paul's. Let's just have fun with it and the true meaning of the minimalist approach. So this is, I'm going to do this backwards. I had a debate reared in 2 days in a row, same debate, they wanted Sky. So the first day I did it, the next day I just flipped the slides around, started backwards, started at the end and did that. So end of the meeting, we're just going to go and do this backwards, all right? So we'll start at the end and go to the beginning, and if we don't get finished at the end, then you won't miss anything. So this is cool. This is the true meaning of minimalist approach to TAVR in 2017. 88-year-old former enlisted Marine sergeant, World War II. He was attached to a Navy unit. His name, he signed all the releases. His name is Major Farnsworth, and he delighted in the fact that he used to call the Navy whenever he needed a requisition, say, this is Major Farnsworth, I need a Jeep. He was a sergeant. He would get anything he wanted pretty much in World War II. He's still a West Texas cabinet maker, severely symptomatic critical AS. He was a third case on Friday of last year, March 4th. So you can see real quickly, intubated, TE placed, case started, case ended, extubated at 12:30. So a little afternoon, he gets extubated. This is me interviewing him. Regina, we got volume? No volume. So the volume is already pumped up on here.
Oh, it is?
And I have it at max at the board.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had issues with volume.
Yeah, I had it the other day. That's when we were working. All right.
Okay.
So, Regina, you can keep working with it, but we'll make these 3 videos lip sync and just little extemporaneous. But in short, you can see an hour after he gets out of the OR, he's awake. I'm talking to him, and fundamentally, just asking him a couple questions, and wind up telling me his wife and sons tell me he's the best cabinet maker in West Texas. And he eventually admits that he is. What do you make it out of? You got a lot of mesquite? No, I have to have oak. I said, okay, we gotta get you well and gets out of here because I may need some cabinets, and that's his big smile. All right. So he's doing pretty good. He has lunch. Where's John Webb's obligatory breakfast if we give you a new valve? Get him up in the afternoon after 4 hours, ambulates, we go 1, 2, 3 laps. And what this is me talking to him, walking in the hall is third time, and fundamentally, the answer is, look, we gave you a new valve today. You've already had a meal. What'd you have for lunch? He says, I had eggs, my coffee, toast. I asked him to have bacon. He said, no bacon. Okay, we're going to save the arteries. All right, you're up walking, you've eaten, you've had John Webb's obligatory breakfast. What else are we going to do with you? You're already dressed. Why are we keeping you in the hospital? We're going to send you home. So fundamentally, short answer is same-day discharge. Now, this was general anesthesia. This was intubation, as you saw. So we can talk about the true minimalist approach all we want to. But the fact is, it's incumbent on you and your anesthesiologist and what you do. We extubated on the table. We've done that for decades, not just years, but for decades. Starting in surgery, starting with that. And this point was really made to me by our anesthesiologist. Look, I can give him whatever drugs you want to. I can take them high, I can take them low, I can take them wherever. So that's going to be a key element to this. Not that we were trying to prove something, but we didn't have any beds that Friday afternoon. We had nowhere for him to go. So as he kind of wandered through it, and he was this good, I said, you want to go home? He was like, you bet, let's get out of here. And so here's an 88-year-old with general anesthesia, intubated, who goes home. So we can talk about minimalist all day. You know, we started with pre-op and streamlining and getting ready in 2014. We added the conscious sedation piece. We've gone on to fast track. We have the algorithm. We look at it after the case and try to get you out of there. Why? You know, just the evolution of TAVR, right? I mean, it is Homo sapien. We've seen the evolution. You know what they are. Smaller sheaths, whether you move to the hybrid, to the cath lab, early extubation, on the table, conscious sedation. Our surgeons had the mistake of telling the anesthesiologist, he's moving. I said, they're supposed to move. This is like a cath lab, okay? Stop telling the anesthesia that they're going to knock him out. So we got better about that. The patient moves for us. He's not completely stone cold dead. He's just lying there moving around while we do the case. We put fewer lines in, no swans, no Foleys. Foleys were keeping people in the hospital. Intubation or sore throat was kind of slowing them down. Put them on the fast track if they haven't had anything during the case. We get to shorter LOS. We discharge to home. No sniffs, LTACs, rehabs if we can help it. I imagine all of you know about PAC now. Everybody know PAC, post-acute care transfer, and the penalty. So you can't do it unless you send them home. You can't even send them home at home health the first 3 days. All right, this is just the complex algorithm that everybody designed. Some of this is, work that the whole Emory group had. Here's your famous paper. even this stuff is a little old now, but he laid it out very well. And Vasilis knows that, you know, we're moving fast. You know, here are his results showing, you know, the intubation differences, procedural time, room time, length of stay time. You can see even back then, 6 days down to 4 days. Even that's not a standard for them anymore. He showed the change in cost, and fundamentally, minutes conversion, none, 145 to 1 in terms of ICU care. You look at the TVT registry, 11,000 patients, 16 have received moderate sedation the first year you looked at it. Equal rates of success, 6% were converted to general anesthesia. But the fact is, lower 30-day mortality, lower mortality in stroke, 4 to 3, 6.5 to less than 5. This is a work that our guys put together of the 300 plus moderate sedation, 180 pre-fast track. And fundamentally what you saw, both the mean and the median dropped from 6 to 3, 5 to 2 in mean and median length of stay. Discharge home rose to 90%, 30-day readmission at 13%. So they're not really coming back at a rate any more than we had. So what is the true meaning of this minimalist approach? Here's some outcome data. This is just the data that all of you have. I mean, yes, same median, same age, same mean STS, hasn't changed. But if you look at it, this is over the past couple of years, we'd really tried to, I preach a zero mentality. We're aiming for zero of everything, even if we can't get there. We got awfully close, as you can see, for a couple of years. 0.5 and zeros, some good things there. We, you know, like every program or everything, you take your eye off the ball for a second, something happens, but we're still trying to hover between 0.5% and 1.5% in in-hospital and 30-day mortalities. We also had grown to 93% last year of all transfemoral, should be growing even more. One of the things that's happened is there are now 10 plus programs in the Metroplex, and the patients we get are a little bit sicker than everybody's average bear, so it's the things you see about tertiary and quaternary care. This is our moderate sedation versus general anesthesia for the past 2 years, with TAVR completed in red, moderate sedation in gray, and you can see that fundamentally we start with the idea of everybody gets moderate sedation unless they need general anesthesia. And then without a circle, in the upper right-hand corner, less than one, fundamentally going home the next day, 70%, going home within 2 days, 80%, and this is continuing to climb. This is what happens when we're just keeping track of it. TAVR's completed, discharge at home without home health, avoiding the packed transfer. You can see that I want the bars to be even. The last November, December, January, in March had a little fall off, but fundamentally we want you to go home. And then if we do that, what about readmissions? Are you going to get readmitted? And you can see that, you know, this year we're finally trying to hit on all 8 cylinders by getting down into single digits, and we hope to continue that, not being readmitted. So now here's the whole story. I could sit here and show a lot of slides. We already had death by PowerPoint. Mostly this is just an outline that you can look at, you can read, and I'm just going to talk through it for a second to tell you this is what we do. And fundamentally what happens in our institution, or what used to happen, it's better now, is, you know, if I left, people didn't go home as fast. If I didn't go up to the floor and look at them, they didn't go home as fast. It's how much passion does somebody have to care about that. And fundamentally, I started with a tenet when we started the program and we moved it from Medical City to the heart hospital that we built. I said, look, everybody's going home the next day. And this was, you know, over 5 years ago. And if taking that approach, you're going to start with the idea you're going home the next day, and you have to set that expectation. So we went on to all the things we talked about: less anesthesia, sedation, intubation, fewer lines, no swans, no Foleys. I've gone through every iteration of pacemakers, every iteration of EP. Now, one of the things is, unless you turn your electricity the wrong way in the OR, your pacemaker comes out, because if it didn't come out in the OR, there's no telling how long it's going to stay in there, no matter what I do to go to the floor, and no matter what happens with EP. Fluid volume, we either give you too much or too little, so you got to get the fluid volume right, and if you get too much, you got to get it off quickly on the floor. If you don't give them enough, don't let them be dry. And blood pressure control sometimes sneaks up and gets us after you open the valve. Fundamentally, I have a rule. If you get a TAVR, you can't have pain pills, you can't have narcotics, sleeping pills, anxiolytics, you can't have any of that. Because the next thing that happens is, all of a sudden, oh, they had a stroke, got to have a CT scan the next morning, they're not going home, they're in a hospital for a week. I'm going, it's not happening, okay? So we don't have anybody wake up in the morning like they had a stroke from their sleeping pill. And then I'll show you a picture in just a second. I'm going to summarize a couple of these. Frequent patient reevaluation, high number of touches. Trying to give you Ritz-Carlton service. Everybody has mid-level providers. Everybody has somebody that's helping run the service. I'll show you in a minute. That is a key element to it. And early ambulation. As you saw, I'm a fan of early ambulation. I barely want them to stay in bed for 4 hours. I want them up in the chair. I want them walking in the hall. I want them moving. And if they haven't done that within 6 hours, something is wrong, and usually somebody's going to have to answer to me. although the whole team has changed that. And then the aspect of setting expectations, it was with a team. The problem was our team. I mean, it was our physicians, it was our cardiologists, our surgeons, like, okay, stop, listen to me. You know, we do have a benevolent dictator, and that's where you're going to go. So eventually they got that idea. Once we convinced them, then we had to convince the family. We told the family, we tell them in a clinic, we tell them beforehand, and then finally hospital staff had to convince them as well because they didn't know what to do with this either. You got no incisions, you got nothing going on. Why are you in the ICU? Why are you in the PCU? And then finally, family involvement. And the family involvement is key, I'll tell you. This is, everybody's got one, but this is the best nurse practitioner in the country who runs our service line. Phyllis is going after that. But there she is. And this is exactly what happens. Basically I brought her from Medical City when we left, and that is a key element to it. Set the staff expectations that we talked about, you know what it is already, and we have the algorithm for it. And then fundamentally, families have all kinds of expectations. You've heard this before. Well, you know, mom can't go home too soon, mom can't do this. I have 2 lines that I've been told that I couldn't use by a hospital president, by our chief nursing officer, by the lawyers, and I still use them. 1, let me explain to you. If we keep them in the hospital, we have an proven ability to make them sick. Number 2, if we keep them long enough, we will kill your mother, father, whatever. And I just simply tell them that, and you know, we get a new fellow, somebody, and they're like, and they're just saying, like, look, they are going home. We're not going to keep them. We're not going to hurt them. So you already know what it is. Here's the summation, same thing. Less anesthesia, sedation, minimalist approach increases safety, decreases the length of stay, cost, improves the outcomes. Vasilis has shown that. And finally, this will optimize and improve efficiency of every program. So, in short, evolve or die. Thank you.
Fantastic as always. So David, a couple quick questions. There's been discussion of what exactly are the medicines we should be allowing to be called minimalist or for sedation purposes. Some people allow remifentanil, some people say just Versed and fentanyl. I mean, what is your approach in terms of what do you allow a patient to get on the table for TAVR?
So we've had a long debate and raging things with our anesthesiologists. We've even had some of our best anesthesiologists quit the TAVR program because of these discussions over time. Fundamentally, one of them saying, look, and it was the guy who did the general anesthesia with this other. First time we really got into a fight, I got a stat page after I'd left the room. And it was fundamentally maybe the elevator, and I thought we had no blood pressure at the elevator. I go out there, and he wanted to show me that, you know, the guy was awake, and he was asking what he had for breakfast, and he was ready to get up out of the bed, go home, and he just wanted to show me, look, I can intubate him, I can sedate him, and it doesn't make any difference. And fundamentally, one of the things that we had the debate about was, look, you're not going to tell us how to practice anesthesia. You're not going to tell us what drugs to give. And so I got out of that business, and certainly we've gone through everything from propofol to Precedex to remifentanil, take your pick. It turns out, at one point, I tried to standardize it with him and took a little survey from all of them, put them together, had them meet. And they're going like, no, I know more than he does. I'm better than Paul. I use this. He uses that. I'm not changing. I had to get out of that business, and fundamentally, it doesn't matter because they can take any of those drugs and they can drop them as low, as high as you want to, and you all know that. And you can call it conscious sedation, but fundamentally, it's deep sedation. Most of the time when you're practicing, they're just not intubated. And then whether you intubate them or not, it's just depending on how deep you take them. And that's the part about the patient moving, and really, you know, are you even using conscious sedation all the time in a cath lab when you give them fentanyl and Versed? You know, half of everybody's knocking them out. So I try not to use Versed. You also know what wigs out with Versed. So we try not to use very much Versed, but somebody is an anesthesiologist who likes it, we let them do it. And I mean, you all know this story.
I think these are great points, and David did a great job summarizing all the experience. Tell me, do you do all your patients in a hybrid room with an anesthesiologist, in a cath lab with an anesthesiologist, in a cath lab without an anesthesiologist? Does it matter to you? Do you change levels? Or, you know, at the Heart Hospital, obviously you guys have an immense facility, so you probably have your pick, but if you did have your pick, how do you decide?
So we do them all in a hybrid OR.
Gotcha.
And fundamentally,
High risk to inoperable, all of them.
anybody. I mean, low risk, no risk.
Right.
And we have done them in a cath lab. We did them in the cath lab for a while when we had reconstruction of the hybrid OR.
Sure.
But fundamentally, we have enough capacity to do it in the hybrid OR. And, you know, I didn't even get in the whole debate, Becky Hahn, you have to have TE, you have to see, you have to do that, you can't tell this. What if you have a catastrophe? Well, I showed the case the other day. If you have a catastrophe, we drop a tube in. I mean, you know,
Right,
we drop a tube, drop TE. And you know all this.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so the other part is that as we go through that, if we try to figure out, is it 1 in 50, 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000? What are we not willing to tolerate of death? And we'd rather operate in the OR than operate in a cath lab. We've operated in a cath lab, don't like to do it. And so fundamentally, we feel like we can do those in the hybrid OR. Maybe we're using a little more resource than a cath lab, but the fact is, you know, for those of you that have heard me say it, I set the goal for the anesthesiologists and the cath labs, I mean the OR staff, we're going to be finished with 3 cases by noon. Anesthesiologist is supposed to be on the golf course at 12 when the clock strikes, and so you need to get out of there. We don't start till 7:30, so you've got to make sure that everybody's moving around the right direction. And then fundamentally, whenever we finish a case, the next thing I do is, you know, if you're the anesthesiologist, I'll just ask you, you know, Bacillus, when are wheels out? And I'll turn to the nurse and say, okay, when are wheels in? Okay, Bacillus, when stick? And fundamentally, if that doesn't add up to less than an hour, then we have a whole renegotiation. You know, and if they tell me 35 minutes, you know, we have a renegotiation. I say you can't do it in 35 minutes, so we'll go through that. But our turnover time, like most of you, is longer than the case unless we screw up.
Right.
And so, in many respects, I don't think the locale makes that much difference unless you got special cost issues at the hospital. Thank you very much. Thanks for meeting, guys.
Have a good flight.